Hey, this is OXDF, and today we're continuing our AWS exploitation journey in the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge for 2022. This is the final challenge in the cloud ring. So let's go ahead and take a look. It's another terminal like this where I get questions at the top and a terminal at the bottom. I'm also going to work out of my local instance in my VM. I have found the AWS instance has some issues, and I actually pointed them out a little bit in the last video. At the end, I tried to add in hey, look, you can run this help menu, and it didn't work, and I was confused. And then I realized later, like, it works on my machine. It just doesn't work in these terminals for some reason, and I couldn't figure out why. So I'm going to show both of those. Um, with that, we're going to get started. So the previous challenge actually had me, oops, did not mean to do that. Close that. The previous challenge actually had me looking at this Git repo specifically to get credentials out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll do that again. We'll run Trufflehog, Git, and then that. And we can see that this is going to show us three instances of potential credentials it finds. We'll find it, the ones we care about here are these AWS creds in put policy in this commit right here. We'll notice this starts with 106D. I'm going to go ahead, so we'll go ahead and clone this. Oops, let's say like that. And we've got that. So now we can go into AWS scripts. Now if we cat put policy here, we can see that the access key and the secret key are hidden now. But if we do a git log one line like this, one line like that. Yep. We can see all the commits here. Now the commit messages are not super helpful. A lot of times, especially in CTFs, you'll see things like whoops and cleaning up credentials or something like that. But we already have Trufflehog to tell us that this is the one we care about right here. So we can do a git diff on this one and then the one that follows. And we can see all that changed is they removed the line with the keys in it and they added in these static things. So we've got keys now. Jumping back over to our other window here, we'll do an AWS configure. And we will use these keys to set up here. So we'll grab this, copy, paste it in. Whoop, that didn't work. Lately, I've been having some issues where I have a hard time with selecting things while I'm recording. And I don't quite know what that is about, but we are going to figure it out, I guess. So we will copy this and paste here, and then it says US East 1, and none should work there, and that should work. And so we'll call AWS STS get caller identity. All right, we got our identity and we've solved the first challenge. So moving on now, we will see that the next thing they want us to do is they say, so there's these shared policies, managed policies that can be applied to multiple users, and we're going to use the AWS policy, it's CLI to find the policies attached to our user. So this is not list user policies. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to go back to our terminal over here and in my VM and say AWS. We know it's going to be within IAM because it tells us, and we'll do help. And the thing that's so strong about the AWS CLI is that the help menus are awesome. So we can start to look through here and we can say, we can look for like managed policy, or let's better do policy like that and just stop so we can get policy or policies. And we don't want to delete, let's get out of the Ds. So here's get, so we're looking closer. I don't really want to get something, I more want to list it. So let's go to list. Here we go. This looks better. So list group policies certainly seems potentially interesting. Here's list policies, role policies. Oh, here's a list attached group policies. That seems exactly what we want. So let's grab that. Copy. And so what we can do here, and I'll show you why I'm using this separate window. So we could do AWS IAM and paste that in. And then presumably we could type help right here. And it says there's an error when calling that because blah, 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 blah. I don't understand why that happens. If I do AWS IAM paste help here, I get the help page for that function. And that's what you really want. That's the strength of the client here. And so this tells us it's going to list all the managed policies that are attached to an IAM group, assuming that can be a user that works. So maybe that's not exactly what we wanted, actually. Let's go back up here and see. I don't really want a group. I want a list. What was that one I was doing? Attached let's see, user policies. Very similar, just slightly different. Let's run here and do attached user policies. So here we have list all managed policies attached to a specific user. That's perfect. Let's see. So the syntax is, we just need to give it a username. So cool. So we do AWS. We're back in the other window. IAM list attached user policies. Now, if we can just enter here and it's going to complain. It's going to say, you're missing the required argument username. So we'll add that. And the username is, I'm going to try HAUG. And we solve it and we get our next question here. So now it says, now view or get the policy that's attached to our user. So back over here, we're going to go back to IAM help. And we definitely want to get maybe user policy. Maybe just get policy would be what we want. Here is a get policy. Let's try that. Come over here. Let's just we'll this time we'll just try it. IAM get policy. Let's see what it's going to ask for. So it's missing a policy ARN. So policy ARN, and we have that right here from our previous thing. So we'll grab this and paste it in here. And it shows me the policy, and better than that, it says moves me to the next question. So attached policies can have multiple versions. View the default version of the policy. So right here, I have the default version ID as V1. So we will come here and we'll say, so how are we going to view this? We can back to IAM help. What if I turn default? Or I don't really want default. I want version maybe. So let's keep going. Oops, go back to the top here. So create policy version, not useful. Delete, but get policy version. Let's see what that does. So we'll do IAM get policy version. So retrieves information about the specified version of a specific managed policy. That sounds like exactly what we want. So we call get policy version. We give it the ARN and the version ID. So we'll come up here, back in our terminal window here, and we will say version. A little bit confusing. I probably would have named it something different, but that's fine. ID, and the ID is V1. And it worked. We moved on to the next question. One thing that's interesting about this is the last thing about this policy is default version is set to false. I can't explain this, but it clearly is what they were looking for. Okay, so inline policies are policies that are unique to a particular identity or resource. So now I want to see if there's any inline policies associated with my user. And so we can use AWS IAM get. I think this is where, well, we'll check it out actually. I think AWS IAM help. And we do get, we probably want a list. It seems like a list. Let's go down here. List policies maybe, or let's see, list user policies. That seems promising. Let's check that one out. Put that here. List the names of inline policies embedded in a specific IAM user. That's exactly what we want. And it's going to take a username. That's it. So we just want to do list user policies, user name, HAUG. Was that right? Try it. So we got it. They have a policy named S3 perms associated with them. So now we need to get the only policy. So we need to get that policy. So we're back here. Get, is it just get policy? Oops, I don't know how I lost my window there. Get policy certainly could be the answer. Let's try that. AWS IAM get policy. Let's see what that takes. It requires a policy ARN. POLICY ARN. Oh, we don't have a policy ARN. Maybe we need to do something. Maybe it's gotta be something different. Maybe it's get user policy. User policy, and then we can get rid of this input, and we could pull it up in the other window and see what it requires, but it requires a username. That's perfect. HAUG. Did I misspell? We must need a policy name as well. And then I can use Control B and then the page up key to go back up here and find the name is S3 perms. So paste that in. And we've got the policy here. Sweet. So inline user policy names S3 perms disclose the name of an S3 bucket I have permissions to. Lists the objects in the that I have. Okay, so I have the permissions here. We can see I have the S3 permissions to list objects on the resource smog machines 3. So it says to use the AWS S3 API command. So we'll do that. AWS S3 API help. And we need to list objects. Let's go to list, and we can see right here, list objects is an answer. Let's try list objects help and check it out. It lists some or all of objects in a bucket. That seems perfect. And we just need to give it a bucket and a value. So I'm guessing the bucket must be smog machines 3. So we'll do AWS S3 API list objects bucket equals smog machines 3. And we solved it. So the attached policy also provided you several lambda privileges. Let's jump back up here, Control B, page up again. Okay, I'm going to take it at its word here. I don't see that here, but maybe that's somewhere else. Let's list lambda functions. So we're back over here in our terminal here, and we can do AWS lambda help list the list functions seems like a reasonable one to try here. So we'll try AWS lambda list functions. As simple as that. It is, okay. Now, this is kind of hard to see. I'll do Control B, Z to zoom in on here, and I still can't get it all. Let's see. So there's one function here. The function name is smog machine lambda. There's got an ARN. It's a Python runtime. And there's some other stuff here. Okay, we'll stick with that. Control B, Z again to unzoom. So what do I want to do next? Lambda functions can have public URLs which are directly accessible. Use the CLI to get the configuration containing the public URL of the Lambda function. So you would think that it would be in here. And it's not. I don't see it. So let's come back over here and we can do AWS lambda help again. And we can try get, so like a get function. And there is. So let's see what would that look like? Get function name. Give that a try. We'll copy this. So we can do AWS lambda get function name machine lambda. We don't have permission for that. So we're going to have to figure out a different way. Let's go back to get function over here. Oh no, let's get out of here and go back to the lambda and look for other functions that maybe we would have permissions to. So let's go down to get function. And there's one right here at the bottom that jumps out. Get function URL config. That's certainly interesting. We'll check that out. So URL config returns details about a lambda function URL. Seems like exactly what we want, and we just need to give it a function name. So we'll come up here, and where we had get function, we will add -URL config. And we get something, and we solve the challenge. So there is a function URL here. We can check this out. Every time I've tried to go to it, it's failed. It's reported an error. Let's give it another try just to see. Yeah, so we've exceeded the invocation limit. Probably just, I guess, too many people playing Holiday Hack. But anyway, I think the big takeaway from this video is if you need to interact with cloud systems, the AWS CLI is your tool. All these docs that I get through the CLI are also available on the AWS website. I just really like being able to go through a command line, pull up the subcommand lambda and get all the functions associated with it. Okay, I'm interested in get function URL config. Great, I can get the details of that. It's really a bummer to me that I wasn't able to get those details to pop up in the terminal. But if you're ever doing this in the real world, that's certainly something you'd have at your hands. So thanks for sticking around with me today, and I'll talk to you next video. Bye.